After 3 years of being the CEO's canary, I got pregnant. Just as I was packing my bags to run for it, Richard somehow found my pregnancy test in the trash. His face was dark, his voice as cold as ice. "Whose bastard is it?" A chill ran down my spine. I looked at his bloodshot eyes, terrified. I remembered what he'd told me 3 years ago. "I have a low sperm count. Saves you a lot of trouble." Richard's hand shot out and clamped around my neck. He gritted his teeth. "I'd love to see who has the guts to use my home as their nesting ground." Later, staring at our son, who was a spitting image of him as a child, the ruthless titan of the business world asked dumbly, "How does he look exactly like I did when I was a baby?" My period was over 2 months late, so I bought a pregnancy test out of curiosity. Staring at the 2 bright red lines, I finally understood what "curiosity killed the cat" really meant. After half an hour of shock, I clung to the hope that the test might be faulty and took a cab to the hospital. When the doctor said, "Congratulations," my heart sank completely. A kept woman getting pregnant? It was the ultimate taboo. Forget my job, I might not even be able to keep the baby. But then I thought about it, I'm already 26. And the father's genes are top tier. I decided to keep the baby. If I just told Richard the first was quitting, he would definitely dig for the real reason. The baby would be discovered for sure. So, I decided to disappear quietly. Conveniently, Richard was on a business trip in Southlake for a few days. It was the perfect time to make my escape. Back at the penthouse, I quickly packed my things. I was just about to stuff a silk nightgown into my suitcase when Richard, who was supposed to be in Southlake, walked out of the bathroom. His face was a thundercloud. In his hand was my pregnancy test. His voice was like ice. "Whose bastard is it?" I froze, staring in terror at his bloodshot eyes. His words from 3 years ago echoed in my head. "I have a low sperm count. Saves you a lot of trouble." Yes, Richard had a low sperm count. That's why, in our 3 years together, we never used any protection. At the time, I thought I was lucky I didn't have to take any pills that could mess with my body. But low sperm count doesn't mean no sperm at all. Seeing me silent, Richard lunged forward and grabbed my throat, his voice a furious hiss. "I'd love to see who has the guts to use my home as their nesting ground." Richard didn't kick me out, and I didn't lose the baby. Instead, I became his canary in a literal sense, caged and watched. He was furious. I wasn't allowed to leave the apartment or see anyone. He even assigned me 10 bodyguards. That's right, not 1. 10. 10 broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted, long-legged handsome men in suits and sunglasses who never left my side. I spent my days looking at these 10 handsome guys, and while I enjoyed the view, I did feel a little guilty. After all, cheating in your head is still cheating. After 2 weeks of my luxurious confinement, I had an unexpected visitor. Looking at the elegant woman in front of me who claimed to be Richard's mother, I instinctively covered my stomach in fear. Rich families are notorious for hating illegitimate children. "You're Anna." The woman took a graceful sip of her tea before speaking. I nodded warily. "I am. I hear you're pregnant." Her eyes fell to my stomach, a chilling smile playing on her lips. "No," I said, shaking my head frantically. "That's just a rumor. How could I possibly be pregnant?" As I spoke, I edged away, terrified she might suddenly throw her cup at me. As if reading my mind, she set her teacup down gracefully. Then she pulled a medical report out of her purse. Seeing my name on it, my face went pale. She had come prepared. This is what decades of being a wealthy matriarch does to you. All those TV dramas I watched were useless in a real-life situation. "I can leave Richard," I said, my voice desperate, hoping she would have a sudden attack of compassion and spare my child. "I promise I'll never appear in front of you again." "You can't leave." She seemed to hesitate for a second, her voice suddenly rising. Realizing her slip, she cleared her throat and regained her composure. You're the first woman who has stayed by Richard's side for this long. I know you're heartbroken that he won't marry you." She paused, a flicker of pity in her eyes. "But a child needs a father. Richard, he'll get over her eventually. Can you just wait for him a little longer?" Staring at the pleading look in her eyes, I felt completely lost. It was like she knew some things, but was completely oblivious to others. I knew I was Richard's canary because I looked about 70% like his first love who'd gone abroad. And I'd known from the start that he would never marry me. But the whole low sperm count thing. Was I the only one who knew about that? Otherwise, why was she so sure this baby was hers? Even Richard himself was convinced it couldn't possibly be his. Well, regardless. The baby was safe. Richard's mother said a lot more, mostly comforting words to convince me not to leave. She even said that if I had the baby, she'd give me $50 million. And she promised the child would only ever know me as its mother. Of course my child would only know me as its mother. But I didn't argue. I just nodded along. After finally seeing Richard's mother out, I glanced at the time. It was already 9 at night. My plan was to take a bath, have a late-night snack, and go to sleep. Half an hour later, I walked out of the bathroom, humming a little tune, only to be startled by a figure sitting on my bed. I took a deep breath, patting my chest to calm my racing heart. "Doesn't Richard know you can scare someone to death like that? What did you say to my mother?" In the dim light, Richard's chiseled face looked sinister. My throat tightened. Why was he back? He'd been gone for 2 weeks. Was it because of his mom? I didn't say anything. Richard scoffed and stood up from the bed. His tall frame was incredibly intimidating. "Didn't say anything? Then why is she so certain that the thing in your belly is her grandchild?" His gaze suddenly dropped to my stomach. I instinctively took a step back, shielding it with my hands. "What? Afraid I'll kill it?" He leaned in, his dark eyes level with mine. The smile on his face didn't reach his eyes, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "No," I said, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "You wouldn't hurt it." He laughed. "Of course I won't kill it now. After all, I still don't know who the bastard is that dared to get my woman pregnant." He gave me a long, hard look, his tone shifting. "But once it has no more value, I have 100 ways to make it disappear from this world." Hearing him say that, I was both terrified and furious. I've heard of sons wanting to kill their fathers. This was the first time I'd seen a father wanting to kill his own son. What an eye-opener. "Have you ever considered that this baby might be yours?" I asked tentatively. If there was even a shred of a possibility that he wanted this child, I would tell him the truth without hesitation. "Anna." My words seemed to have struck a nerve. He suddenly grabbed my face, his grip vicious. The violent rage swirling in his eyes made me go cold. "Cheating on me is one thing, but now you want me to raise some other man's kid? You've got a lot of nerve." With that, he shoved me away. His cold words rained down on me. "I can never have children." My heart turned to ice. He can't have children. Or he can't have them with me. I met Richard at the Imperial Hotel. I was a new intern, and my manager dragged me along to drink with a client. Trying to avoid getting drunk, I ducked into the restroom to hide. I didn't expect the client to follow me. The middle-aged man, flushed with alcohol, made no attempt to hide his intentions, pulling me toward the men's room. Richard saved me. That night, Richard was like a hero descending from the heavens, just for me. I was so grateful. The client, furious at being thwarted, threatened me with our contract. My manager blamed me for everything and told me to go to the client's room to personally apologize. Going up there wouldn't be an apology, it would be throwing myself into a lion's den. I refused. And so, I lost my first job. As I was leaving the hotel, I ran into Richard again. He was smoking in the dim light of the evening, his tall, imposing figure exuding a strange sense of loneliness. I ran up to him, wanting to thank him again. Before I could speak, he glanced down at me. Then he said something shocking. "Be my mistress. $50,000 a month." Honestly, my first instinct was to curse him out. But then I looked into his dark eyes, which seemed to hold nothing but a vast emptiness. I hesitated. After thinking it over for a full minute, I accepted his offer. After all, for someone like me from a state school, making that kind of money was next to impossible. Especially after my first taste of workplace harassment, I was already over the whole 9-to-5 thing. Besides, with a face like Richard's, I wasn't exactly losing out. That night, I signed a contract to be his canary. I found out I was his only mistress. I'd assumed I'd be at least number 4 or 5. I also learned about his low sperm count. Suddenly, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. Rich, handsome, and sterile. He was the perfect, worry-free arrangement. Even though I was his kept woman, Richard wasn't like the sugar daddies you see on TV. He was almost too good to me. He bought me all sorts of gifts and always respected my opinions. He took me on trips and even introduced me to his friends. In the beginning, I wondered if maybe he liked me, even just a little. Then I found out I was just a stand-in for the one that got away. I knew that one day, Richard would discard me. So, over the years, I guarded my heart carefully and simply enjoyed the good things he gave me. Richard was the perfect man. Especially in bed. He always knew how to drive me wild. Sometimes, I even suspected he was the one serving me, not the other way around. But a man that good could also be crueler than anyone else when he was pushed. Ever since he found out I was pregnant, Richard stopped sleeping in the same bed with me. I guess he thought I was dirty. The pregnancy was making me incredibly sleepy. One morning, I was still deep in my dreams when Maria, our housekeeper, woke me up. I thought she was waking me for breakfast because she was worried I'd be hungry. Instead, she told me to get up and watch Richard eat breakfast. As I watched Richard elegantly eat his lavish meal, I shot a resentful look at Maria. She just closed her eyes and shook her head. I was so frustrated. What new kind of punishment was this? Was he trying to starve me and the baby to death? I couldn't take it anymore. I called out to him softly. "Mr. Miller, I'm hungry." I used to call him Richard or some other silly nickname. But on the day he found out, he fiercely warned me never to call him by his name again. Hearing me, Richard's brow, which had been relaxed, instantly furrowed. His cold, handsome face darkened, his eyes icing over. Starve. That single word made my eyes well up, a wave of hurt rising from my chest. He wouldn't let me leave, he kept me locked up, and now he wouldn't let me eat. He was trying to torture me, wasn't he? I stood up angrily, intending to find food myself. But before I could take a step, Maria's words stopped me. "Miss Anna, you have a doctor's appointment today for a checkup. You can't eat anything." I looked at Maria in shock, then at Richard. How did I not know I had an appointment today? Wait, I think the doctor did say to come back for a checkup in 2 weeks. Then I'll go right now. I didn't hesitate. I turned and headed for the door. The sooner I got this over with, the sooner I could eat. I was starving. But why was Richard coming with me? Oh, wait. He was being dropped off at work first, and then I would be taken to the hospital. I knew it. There was no way Richard would suddenly be so nice as to accompany me to a prenatal appointment. Still, it's not like we only have one car. Did we really need to be this frugal? Or was it that I no longer deserved my own private car? The morning was a whirlwind of tests, and by the time it was over, I immediately chugged 2 cartons of milk to tide me over. While I wasn't paying attention, the driver, Leo, took us to Richard's office building. Recognizing the familiar underground garage, I reminded him. "I'm going to the corner bistro for lunch, not to see Richard." Leo opened my door, his expression blank. "Mr. Miller said that after your checkup, you needed to report the results to him in person." "Seriously, what is his deal?" He's convinced this baby isn't his. Why does he need to know all the details? Doesn't it just make him feel worse? Fuming, I followed Leo up to Richard's office on the 33rd floor. It was lunchtime, and Richard was eating. Looking at the ridiculously extravagant spread of 8 dishes and a soup, I ground my teeth. So while I was running around the hospital all morning, getting several vials of blood drawn, and feeling faint from hunger, he was up here feasting like a king. Figures. The mother is always the one who suffers during pregnancy. A father like him? I'd rather not have one. The baby is very healthy. I was so angry I barely wanted to talk to him. I just wanted to leave and get some food. So I cut to the chase. Richard, who had been wiping his hands, curled his lip into a cold sneer. His mouth was pure poison. Of course it is. Scum is always resilient. I should have been furious, but the thought of him insulting his own child just made me feel defeated. I took a deep breath, not wanting to say anything more. I turned to leave. But Richard called me back. Come here. I reluctantly turned around, plastering a standard fake smile on my face. My voice was stiff. Is there anything else, Mr. Miller? Richard paused with his chopsticks in hand and looked up at me. A cold glint flashed in his dark eyes. Eat with me. I was surprised. I never expected him to ask me that. But right now, the last thing I wanted was to look at his face. Mr. Miller, Before I could finish my refusal, he cut me off. Don't forget your place. My heart sank. Right. I was just his canary. I had no right to refuse my keeper. Defeated, I sat down across from him. Looking at the dishes, I worried he might try to feed me something pregnant women shouldn't eat. I pulled out my phone, pretending to reply to a message. Mr. Miller, I just need to answer a text. Then I quickly Googled, can pregnant women eat beef with bell peppers? Braised shrimp? Steamed sea bass? Pork rib soup with yam? Seeing that Google gave the all clear, I let out a sigh of relief. I picked up my chopsticks and started eating like I was starving. I was eating so fast that I started to choke. A bowl of soup was promptly placed in front of me, saving my life. After I drank it, I looked gratefully at the man across from me. For a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of concern on his cold face. But when I looked again, his brow was furrowed in a deep scowl. His tone was sarcastic. What, trying to die in my office and take the bastard with you? Make me the fall guy for both of you? Dream on. I blinked, speechless, and went back to eating. Richard used to be so full of sweet talk in bed. How did his words become so toxic? I really wanted to poison him so he'd shut up. Judging from Richard's attitude toward the baby these past few days, he really hated it. Even though it was just verbal for now, I couldn't shake a deep-seated fear. I was afraid that one day, he would snap and do something to hurt my child. This is my baby. I won't let anyone harm him. Not even Richard. Maybe she could protect us. When I got back to the penthouse, I called Richard's mother. I told her I was hoping I could stay with her during my pregnancy. She agreed and told me to wait for her to come get me. But I never imagined this is how she would do it. I waited for her for 3 days. On the 3rd night, it wasn't her who came for me, but a furious beast like Richard. He stormed into my room and yanked me, sound asleep, out of my bed. In the darkness, his black eyes bored into mine, burning with rage. Anna, do you really think I won't touch that bastard? His cold voice was like a death rattle from hell, making me tremble. Who gave you permission to tell everyone it's my child? And now you want to move into my mother's house and have her wait on you? He spat out each word through clenched teeth. In your dreams. You will never, ever leave my side. As he spoke, he suddenly leaned down. I scrambled away, terrified that if I was a second too late, he would strangle me. No, it's not like that. I pleaded, shaking my head, my voice trembling with fear. I did want his mother to take me in, but I never expected her to take care of me. I just thought that if I was with her, I might find a way to escape. And I had never, ever told anyone that this was Richard's child. The man in front of me was terrifying. I clutched the blanket, trying to find some sense of security. I didn't. I really didn't, I repeated weakly, shaking my head over and over. The minutes ticked by. Richard, who had been on the verge of losing control, slowly grew quiet. In the dead of night, the only sound in the suddenly silent room was my own choked sobbing. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't dare look at him. I was afraid of this Richard. Richard left my room without another word. And for the first time in the 3 years I'd lived in this penthouse, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I slept until the afternoon. Richard's mother came to visit. She told me apologetically that she couldn't take me with her. After Richard's reaction last night, I had already guessed as much. She also apologized to me, saying that even if I couldn't legally be her daughter-in-law, in her heart, she would only ever accept me and my child. Her words were a confusing mess. It was only after she left that I saw the news online and realized what a massive, backstabbing mess she had made for me. She had taken it upon herself to leak a story to the press. It said I was pregnant with Richard's child and that we were getting married soon. And right after that story was another one. The CEO of the Miller Corporation's childhood sweetheart, Isabel Vance of the Vance family, is rumored to be returning home tomorrow to fight for her man. Ha! My heart wasn't just cold now, my whole body was turning to ice. What was she thinking? Doesn't she know who her son is in love with? Who he's been hung up on for years? How could she possibly think that me and this baby could ever compete with the one that got away? No wonder Richard was so furious last night. He must think I put his mother up to this, that I was trying to force his hand. Not just forcing him into marriage, but forcing him to be a father to another man's child. At least, that's how it looked from his perspective. I'm screwed. I wonder if I call the police and tell them I'm being held captive, if they'll even believe me. Richard always appeared out of nowhere. And every time he did, it brought bad news for me. A few more appearances like this, and I doubt I'll even live to see my baby's birth. Do I have to go? I looked nervously at Richard, who was dressed in a custom black suit, and asked tentatively. This was the first time I'd seen him dressed so formally. From head to toe, every single hair was perfect. It was clear he considered tonight's event extremely important. Richard paused, looking up from his tablet to give me a fleeting glance. That one look was enough. He didn't have to say a word. I already knew the answer. I didn't understand. He hated me so much he couldn't even stand the sight of me. So why was he dragging me to this gala? What did their charity events, thrown by a bunch of wolves in sheep's clothing, have to do with me? I was just an innocent little lamb. Going there was like walking into a slaughterhouse. Unless, was he taking me there to be humiliated in front of his first love? A chill shot up from my feet and spread through my entire body. I pressed my lips together, staring at the man before me. Would he really do that to me? This was the first time I'd worn an evening gown since getting pregnant. Though I was in a gown, I wasn't wearing high heels. All because of one of Richard's snide remarks. A pregnant woman in high heels? Do you want people to say I'm abusing you? His words were harsh, but they were a relief. Richard was acting strange tonight. From the moment we entered the mansion where the gala was being held, he parked me in a corner. He warned me not to talk to anyone, not to drink, and not to run off with some other guy. Then he just left. If he didn't need me, why did he bring me here? Looking around at the unfamiliar faces in the unfamiliar room, I sighed and started picking at the desserts on the table. Can't leave, can't talk, can't drink. But I can eat, right? And these desserts were actually delicious. A glass of juice would make this perfect. Just as I was thinking that, a glass of milk appeared in front of me. I followed the hand holding the milk up to its owner. It was Richard's best friend, Liam. Eating so fast? Be careful not to choke, Liam said with a gentle smile. Thanks. I took the milk and drank it down, letting out a sigh of relief. What are you doing here? I tilted my head, looking at him. Weren't they all supposed to be inside at the auction right now? Why was he out here? He said, casually picking up a black truffle diamond pastry and taking a bite. Got a little hungry. Came out to find something to eat. It was clearly an excuse. But since he didn't want to say, it would be rude to press him. I just grabbed another dessert. How have you been lately? He asked casually. I thought for a moment and nodded. Yeah, pretty good. Actually, not that great. But Richard had told me not to talk nonsense. I felt his gaze travel over me from head to toe. Then I heard a low chuckle. I can tell. I froze, not understanding for a second. Then I remembered Richard's look when I had first tried on the dress earlier. My face instantly burned. It's because I'm pregnant, I explained, annoyed. I'm not getting fat. It was true. At 3 months pregnant, I'd gained about 10 pounds. It was evenly distributed, but for someone who had always been strict about my weight, it was definitely noticeable. I see, Liam said, nodding thoughtfully. Richard always said you were too thin. He thought you'd look better with a little more weight on you. Looks like he was right. Can we please chat without bringing up Richard? We chatted for a few more minutes before Liam's playful eyes suddenly lit up. He said he had to go and then dashed off. I watched him head toward a beautiful woman in a black gown not far away. I pretended not to see and went back to my desserts. I've discovered that even if I don't bother anyone, people will always find a way to bother me. You must be Anna. The voice was incredibly gentle, almost soothing. I looked up and saw the face I'd only ever seen online. Isabel was wearing a white, fringed gown. Her face was fair, her smile soft, and her doe-like eyes were clear and beautiful. She was the perfect image of every man's first love. Can we talk? Isabel approached, stopping an arm's length away from me. Her smile was open and honest. I followed her out to the garden. I knew this was coming. It was inevitable. I couldn't avoid it, nor should I. Have a seat. From the moment we met, she radiated a sense of effortless grace. We were complete strangers. One was the cherished first love, the other was the kept woman. We were two people who should never have met. Yet here we were, sitting together peacefully. I didn't know if this was the calm before the storm or the beginning of some sordid scheme. I'm Isabel. Richard's childhood friend. I'm sure you've heard of me. I know who you are, I nodded. It was the first thing I'd said to her. She smiled, but her gaze drifted up to the moon, which was casting a soft glow in the sky. The moonlight illuminated her beautiful face, making her look almost ethereal. 3 years ago, I left Richard and went abroad. Not long after, he found you. Her gentle voice drifted through the air. I listened quietly. I know he was angry with me. Angry that I didn't stay for him. But at the time, I had my own ambitions to pursue. Love was only 30% of my life. I couldn't give up the other 70% for him. She suddenly looked back at me, her tone shifting. But then I realized, a future without him brought me no happiness at all. So, I came back. She finished, smiling at me. Her beautiful eyes held an expectation, as if she wanted me to respond. So, why did you two break up in the first place? She didn't expect that question. Her smile froze, and her usually composed eyes flickered. You can't blame me for asking. I was just too curious. A rich, handsome, and available boyfriend, if they were still in love, what could possibly make them break up? The once confident Isabel suddenly became hesitant. After a few breaths, she finally spit it out. I wanted to move to France, to live in a place where the air is filled with romance. But he wouldn't go. So, we broke up. But now, I'm willing to come back for him. Then, her entire demeanor changed. The gentleness was gone. The effortless grace disappeared. She became anxious, stubborn, her eyes filled with undisguised aggression. Honestly, for the first time in my life, I was at a loss for words. Does anyone understand how speechless I am right now? They broke up because he wouldn't move abroad? That's it? That's the reason? And since she was putting on an act, why couldn't she just stick with it? Give me back the pristine image of the first love I had in my head. Maybe sensing my bewilderment, she dropped the act entirely and went straight to threats. Let me warn you. So what if you're pregnant? Someone with your status could never marry into the Miller family. And so what if we broke up? For the sake of our family's interests, Richard will choose to marry me, not you. If you have any self-respect, you'll leave on your own. I can even give you some compensation. Don't wait until you're left with nothing. You'll regret it then. Who said first loves are always gentle, beautiful, and kind? Besides the beautiful part, she didn't fit the description at all. Meanwhile, Liam found Richard in the auction hall. After hearing what Liam said, Richard's face went black. Why did everyone want to steal his woman? First, it was some random guy he didn't even know. His mother, will set her aside for now. And now Isabel was trying to drive a wedge between them. I told you to watch her. Why did you let Isabel get near her? Richard was grinding his teeth. You better pray she's okay. With that, Richard tore out of the room and ran toward the garden. He arrived just in time to hear Isabel say, "You can't break what Richard and I have. He's still in love with me. Otherwise, he never would have found a. You think I love you, but wouldn't even splurge on a plane ticket to come see you?" Richard appeared suddenly, cutting her off. Seeing him, Isabel was clearly flustered. She stood up, reaching for his hand, but he moved away. "No, it's not that you wouldn't. It's that your pride wouldn't let you." Isabel's voice got quieter and quieter, her confidence fading. A cold laugh echoed in the night. Richard walked over to me, his tall frame towering over me as he looked down. A dark, unreadable emotion flickered in his eyes. In front of the person you love, pride is worthless. It was the first time I'd ever heard him speak so bluntly. For her, I'd even accept the evidence of her mistakes she intentionally left behind. His gaze fell to my stomach, his voice laced with a strange sadness. As long as she's willing to stay by my side. My brain exploded. Wait, Richard isn't in love with his first love anymore? Then who does he love? It couldn't be me, right? He loves me, but he doesn't believe we could have a child together. Isn't that a contradiction? No, I can't overthink this. There's no way Richard loves me. Richard, Isabel tried to say something, but Richard didn't give her the chance. From now on, don't ever let me hear you spreading rumors that I'm still hung up on you. If she hears it, she'll be sad. With that, he pulled me up from the chair and led me away. My mind was a complete mess. In the car, I was silent, and so was Richard. We got back to the penthouse and continued to treat each other like air. I moved like a robot, following my usual routine. I went to my room, got ready, and went to take a shower. About 10 minutes later, a scream ripped through the apartment. Less than a minute later, Richard burst into my bathroom. "Anna, what's wrong? Did you fall? Where does it hurt? Tell me." Seeing his panicked, worried face, I finally snapped back to reality. "I'm okay," I said, shaking my head numbly from my spot on the floor. I had almost slipped. Luckily, I'd managed to grab onto the sink at the last second. Otherwise, a fall like that could have been dangerous for the baby. The realization sent a wave of cold sweat down my back. "Are you sure you're okay?" Richard helped me over to the bed and sat me down. "Let me see." He examined me like I was a priceless artifact, checking every inch from every angle. Once he was certain I was unharmed, Richard's worry vanished, replaced by a deep frown. He started yelling at me. "Anna, are you trying to kill yourself? Who taught you to shower without shoes? If you want to die, fine, but don't take the baby with you. The baby is innocent. With that, he turned to find some slippers for me. Watching him kneel on the floor to put the slippers on my feet, my eyes stung. Tears started to fall, and I couldn't stop them. Noticing I was crying, Richard panicked. He clumsily tried to wipe my tears away, but they just kept coming. Finally, he pulled me into his arms. His large, warm hand gently stroked my hair. His voice, a sound I hadn't heard in so long, came from above me, soft and comforting. It's okay. It's all okay now. It had been so long since I'd seen this gentle side of Richard. The Richard who used to spoil me like a child seemed to have disappeared the day he found out I was pregnant. The Richard of these past few weeks was someone I feared, someone I hated. I didn't like that Richard. I missed the old one. So, seeing him worried about me again, caring for me, being so gentle, all the pain and fear I had bottled up inside me came flooding out. I wanted to demand why he had treated me like that. I wanted to ask why the old him had disappeared without a word. I don't know how long I cried. But I know I cried for a very, very long time. If Richard hadn't said that crying too much was bad for the baby, I probably would have cried myself to sleep. So much happened that night. I should have had a restless night, but I ended up having the most peaceful sleep since I found out I was pregnant. Because Richard slept with me. We both tacitly agreed never to bring up what happened that night again. After that, Richard's attitude toward me changed again. He moved back into my room. He said he was afraid I'd die in the bathroom one day and no one would know. He still insulted the baby from time to time, but sometimes I would catch him looking at my belly with a soft expression in his eyes. Not only that, but he started coming with me to my checkups. I no longer had to go through it all alone. When he saw I had no appetite, he would have Maria cook all sorts of different things for me. There was one strange thing, though. One lazy afternoon, Richard suddenly ordered all 10 bodyguards to wear masks. No reason given. It was just completely random. Later, one day when our little potato was 3, I remembered and asked him about it. He sheepishly told me the reason. He said, I heard that when a woman is pregnant, the baby will look like whoever she sees the most. It all clicked. No wonder he was always so meticulously dressed when I was pregnant. At the time, I'd suspected he was peacocking for some other woman on the side. Time flew by, and soon it was the day little potato was born. It's actually a funny story. That day, Maria and I were in the garden digging up potatoes. On my very first try, I pulled up a vine with almost 10 potatoes on it. I got so excited that my water broke. By the time I got to the hospital, Richard was already there waiting for me. Before they wheeled me into the delivery room, I made him promise he wouldn't bury little potato. Yes, that's how casually I named my son. Richard had no idea what I was talking about, but he promised anyway. Finally, I was wheeled into surgery, my mind at ease. When I came out, the first thing I asked was, "Where is my little potato?" Richard quickly had Maria bring the potato over. The moment I saw that small, round potato, I burst into tears, sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. They almost had to rush me back into surgery. In the end, it was Richard's mother's words that saved me. She looked at me with pity in her eyes and said, "Anna, dear, let's not cry. Little Richard will be sad if he hears you." Then, she placed little potato in my arms. My sobs finally subsided. I started stroking the tiny person in my arms. I whispered gently, "Little potato, I'm mommy. Say mommy." That's when they all realized who little potato was. Newborns are all wrinkly and red. Richard didn't want to even look at him. And I didn't want him to. This was my treasure. But a week later, he took one look at our son and froze. The ruthless titan of the business world asked the dumbest question I've ever heard. He said, "Little potato, how does he look exactly like I did when I was a baby?" Richard's mother was the first to speak, laughing. What a silly thing to say. Sons look like their fathers. That's normal. When you were born, you looked just like your dad, too. Richard didn't hear the rest of what she said. As soon as he heard sons look like their fathers, he dropped to his knees beside my bed. Tears welled up in his red-rimmed eyes. His voice choked as he said to me, "My love, I was wrong." Of course, I wasn't going to forgive him that easily. So, for my revenge, I made him chase me for 5 years before I finally agreed to marry him. And of course, we're happy. Because when two people who love each other get to be together, it's not something to be taken for granted. When you finally have it, you should celebrate like crazy.